to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 350. Thank you for joining me. Hope you guys had a good weekend. We're still talking about the Jews. We're still talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination a little bit. But today we're going to get into Jewish history. We're going to begin talking about the Babylonian captivity, the siege of Jerusalem by the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the destruction of Solomon's temple. And we'll get to that towards the end of the podcast. Tomorrow is October 7th. It's going to be the 2-year anniversary of the October 7 attacks on Israel from Hamas. And they've been engaged in that war for about 2 years now. It started right away. So it looks like that there may be a peace agreement that is finally on the table. The United States has sent representatives over to Cairo now that are meeting with Israeli representatives and representatives of Hamas and Qatar, and everybody is there to hash out the agreement, the peace agreement that it looks like we have, that Hamas is going to finally turn over all of the remaining hostages, and Israel is going to pull out of Gaza. And that seems to be the plan tentatively. And that's what we're going to get into today. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was on several of the Sunday shows yesterday talking about this plan. And I want to play a little bit of this interview that he did with Martha on Face the Nation to get us started. Take a listen.
It would be extraordinary to end what has been one of Israel's longest and bloodiest wars. The prime minister said he's only allowing these talks that will be underway in Egypt to go for a few days. What exactly is the deadline for Hamas and the terror groups who are holding hostages? When do they need to release them?
Well, yeah, so a couple points. Hamas has, obviously, look, we're dealing with Hamas, okay? So let's take that for what it is. But they have said that they agree with the president's framework for the release of the hostages. So what those talks should be about, and some of that conversation is already happening now, it's not waiting until Monday in Cairo, is the logistics behind the release of these hostages. How do you stop the fighting? Who's going to go in and get them? You know, when are they going to be released? Where are they picked up? What are the processes for this? That's what this conversation should be about at this point, because they've agreed to the framework of it. Mm-hmm. Then there's second beyond that is what happens after that, and that is how do we ensure that we can create and help build a Gaza free of terrorism, free of Hamas, free of anything like Hamas, and that's going to take work and some time, not just to agree on, but to implement. But that's important because that's what's going to bring a permanent end to these hostilities in the long term. And so those are the two phases here. But right now, the most emergent and immediate phase is the one that Hamas claims to have agreed to already, and that is they are prepared to release the hostages. Let's discuss through the mediators the logistics and the mechanics behind how that happens. And that has to happen very quickly. That cannot drag on. All right.
So they have a tentative agreement. They're just in Cairo hashing out the details. Now, I want to play this clip. This is from a CNN panel from the Abby Phillips show. And after the agreement was announced, and it was announced that Hamas had accepted the agreement, I want you to look at this panel from CNN. They seem angry that there is a tentative peace agreement, like they don't want peace. It's the most bizarre thing. This is a very interesting video. I have to play this for you, but take a listen.
I think this has been a gamble from the very beginning, but this thing is not going to end overnight. It's going to be in stages, and the first big stage is going to be, are you going to release all the hostages, and can we get the bombs to stop falling? And if President Trump is able to do this, it's a major victory for him.
She seems sad. She seems sad that,
look, it is
that Donald Trump is going to get this victory, that it's Donald Trump. This woman actually says it, that she's lamenting the fact that Donald Trump is the one who negotiated this, and that it's a bad deal because, well, she doesn't say it's a bad deal, but she says it's a shame that Donald Trump's going to get credit for this. This is what they're thinking about on CNN. This is crazy.
Release all the hostages, and can we get the bombs to stop falling? And if President Trump is able to do this, it's a major victory for him.
Look, it is challenging to actually hear that piece of, Trump potentially being the one to get the ceasefire deal. But I think
it's challenging to hear that Trump will be the one to get this ceasefire deal. She's mad about the fact that Trump is the one doing this and that Trump is negotiating peace in the Middle East. This is crazy. This is the way they think. This is the way Democrats think. They're not happy that there's finally, after 2 years, which they've all been protesting and free Palestine and stop the killing, stop the genocide. But she's sad that Trump's going to get credit for negotiating peace. This is crazy.
Trump potentially being the one to get the ceasefire deal. But I think what we are seeing now is that a lot of people are tired of the devastation that's happening to the Palestinian people. And so how do we figure out a path forward? And so I would be interested to understand President Trump's interest in this, because he has said some things that are very harmful to the Palestinian people. I don't know what his motivations are.
He wants the war to end. I mean, he
wants
the war.
The hostages
He wants.
That's what he wants.
He wants the war to end for a lot of reasons. Some of them are personal reasons. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize. Some of them are that I do think that whatever you think of Trump, he does not like the idea of all the death and destruction. But here's one more piece to this. The public opinion polling over the last few months has shown a very clear shift away from Israel.
This is a very important part that she's saying here, is that public opinion globally has shifted against Israel. Israel is seen in a negative light by many, many people, not just here in the United States, globally. This has been a PR disaster for Israel. She's right about that.
Favorable view of Israel is now at 53% among U.S. adults. And if you break that down by party, it has increased by 10% among Republicans and Republican-leaning voters between 2022 and 2025. So that shift is happening. At the same time that Trump is very aware that his base, especially younger Republicans, are getting frustrated, not just with Hamas, but also with Israel as well.
This is not a political issue. Look, President Trump has been clear from the beginning. He wants the hostages back. When he took office back in January, they had an initial deal to get some hostages. A few were released. Then Hamas reneged on that deal then. He's been clear from the beginning. I just want these people back. The people who are alive, we pray that they're still alive. The remains that exist, it all needs to happen. And it needs to happen quickly. And that's what I'm actually, look, I've worn this pin every night, just about since October the 7th, because the hostages is what I really care about. And we seem to be on the brink of maybe the possibility that they get out of the Gaza terror tunnels. If that's true, I'll pray for it to be true every minute until it happens. I want to know how long they're going to give Hamas to keep up this deal. Like Hamas has said, we want to enter into negotiations to talk about releasing. How long are we going to let that go on? I don't want to be strung along by these terrorists. I want the hostages. That's what the president wants. And I don't want him to give them very much time because they don't deserve it. And these people need to come home. We're almost 2 years into this.
We'll see what happens. I'm hopeful that they do have a peace deal and they're able to get a peace deal, but I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm a little bit skeptical because, first of all, I know that the public sentiment, not only here in the United States, but all over the world. This was a protest that they had in the Netherlands over the weekend. Look at how many people showed up to protest for Palestine and against Israel in the Netherlands. This is crazy. Thousands and thousands of people protesting for Hamas or protesting for Palestinians in the Netherlands. So as far as the PR, the propaganda war goes and the public relations effect of this war, it has been it's been more in the favor of Hamas and the Palestinians than Israel. The people have grown more critical of Israel over the last 2 years of this war and more sympathetic of Palestine. It's not only happening here in the United States, but it's happening global. And the reason that I'm skeptical is because I remember the Oslo Accords. I remember how hopeful we were that there would finally be peace when Rabin and Arafat shook hands and signed a peace deal in the 90s. And everybody was hopeful that this is it. We can finally reach peace. But what happened? Well, first of all, Rabin is assassinated. And we're going to talk about who assassinated Rabin and how Rabin was villainized for making a peace deal prior to getting assassinated. This guy was a war hero in Israel. He was a general that commanded the Israeli forces during the 6-Day War. And then he becomes prime minister, and he wants to negotiate a peace deal. He wants to finally bring peace to that region, and he's assassinated. We'll talk about who assassinated him in a later podcast. And then Arafat he's basically crippled by Hamas, and there were basically forces working against the peace deal. There were forces that didn't want peace. So that's why I'm skeptical. I mean, that's why this woman was kind of sad that there's a peace deal and that Trump's getting credit for it. There's other people who don't want peace. There's people that do not want peace on both sides. And this is something that I've been saying for a long time. We're going to talk about who those people were. Now, Charlie Kirk, the reason that so many people were accusing Israel of assassinating Charlie Kirk and saying that Charlie Kirk was killed by Israel because of things that he had been saying about Israel prior to his assassination. This is one example. This was Charlie Kirk on the Patrick Bet-David show. I want you to take a listen to what he says here.
Many times, the whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border.
He's talking about the September or the October 7th attack that happened 2 years ago when Hamas paraglided over the wall, came in under underground tunnels. He's saying, I'm having a hard time believing that Israel didn't know anything about this and that they were taken by surprise. This is what Charlie Kirk says on the Patrick Bet-David show.
Many times, the whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets.
Huge protests. And against the Knesset and the reforms that were being made against Netanyahu, against the Likud party, which is Netanyahu's party. Huge protests in Israel. And that's why I was telling you guys, you can't blame all Jews for what a small group of Jews are doing, because, I mean, that's how you get the accusations of anti-Semitism tossed at you and saying that you are hateful towards all Jews because you put all Jews in this, lump them all in this same category. Like Charlie Kirk is saying here, there were major protests against Netanyahu prior to the October 7th attacks 2 years ago.
Go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order?
Wow.
Was there a stand down order?
He's saying, was there a stand down order on October 7th, 2 years ago? Was there a stand down order during that attack? Was there a stand down order is what Charlie Kirk is saying.
There a stand down order?
He's asking.
Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes.
Wow.
6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long wait for help as massacre unfolds.
Now, we're going to get into this New York Times article in a future podcast and another New York Times article. I'm going to explain to you what Charlie Kirk is talking about with that question. This is the same interview, something else that Charlie Kirk says in that interview that he did with Patrick Bet-David. Take a listen.
But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Oh, wow. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza is what Charlie Kirk said. So this is where the conspiracies were coming from, saying that the Israeli government had to shut him up. This is why so many people believe that the Israeli government is responsible, that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk is because of things like this that he had said. He even went on the Megyn Kelly show, and he was saying how he was being attacked for platforming people like Tucker Carlson, for platforming her, for the things that he was saying, and people were calling him anti-Semitic. Take a listen to this clip of Charlie Kirk with Megyn Kelly.
And my moral character is being put into question. And so I think it's a hyper paranoid, like we're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice. But it goes to the point where if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan? That's not so right.
Wrong-headed. I'll tell you this for me. So I got some blowback after saying Mossad possibilities with Epstein, a comment behind which I stand. I mean, I realize, and I've of course reported what Alan Dershowitz has said as his lawyer. He says, I think he would have told me. He didn't say he had any of those connections. I hear all that. That doesn't mean it's not true. I think all these things should be explored. It's one of the many things that should be explored around Epstein. But saying that, and also saying he might be a U.S. asset, et cetera, doesn't make you anti-Semitic. That's fucking crazy. And then we get to last week, I go on Piers Morgan, right? So I go on Piers Morgan last week, and I don't talk about Israel a lot in this show. I just like covering the day-to-day of a conflict like this is not my thing. It's not what we do here at the Megyn Kelly Show. We haven't done it for Ukraine. We haven't done it for Israel. We haven't done it for a lot of conflicts, but we'll talk about it when big things happen. So Piers talks about it a lot. Piers asked me, it was a very interesting kind of culture study. So he asked me about the photos of the starving children out of Gaza. And I said a couple of things, both of which got a fair amount of pickup. All right. So first, this is what I said about the photos. Listen to SOT 10. Well, I'm always reluctant to put too much stock in the images coming out of Gaza, that phrase, because they're manipulated and they're masters of propaganda and they're fine having their own children starve just as long as they can put them on camera and show them off to the world. That's Hamas. And frankly, it's a lot of Palestinians. So I'm very skeptical of taking those images at face value and saying it's Israel's fault. Okay, so that clip gets circulated
I'm with you on that.
a million times by my Israeli friends and my Jewish friends online. Like, go Megan. Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Yeah, she's right on. Look at her, speak truth to Piers. And then Piers released as a separate clip my follow-up to that comment. Okay. And here's that.
You're not allowed any nuance, Megan. It's only tribalism.
No, that's right. So here's SOT 11. Israel, whether it realizes it or not, has made itself the villain of the world in letting this thing go on so long. They have lost support amongst their dearest friends. And even the entire Democrat Party here in the United States has turned against them, and they're losing Republicans by the day here in America, which is their most important ally. So whether the fight continues to be just or not is almost irrelevant. As Trump said when he was running this time last year, not yet elected, time to wrap it up. And that's how I feel, too. And I've given Israel a long berth. I fully understand, as an American who was attacked on 9/11, my country was that, when you attack the United States and you kill thousands of our citizens, and Israel was in this position on 10/7, it's fine to respond, and it doesn't have to be proportionate. Whoever said it has to be proportionate. But what Israel's doing now is losing its standing with the rest of the world. It's starting to lose, too, even with its closest friends, its moral reputation, its moral high ground. And as Trump said a year ago, time to wrap it up. Cue
well said.
The 25 text messages from people I know, like friends who are pro-Israel, like, I'm so sad that you've left us. I'm so sad let's debate it. Many Jewish advocates saying, let me come on your show and we'll debate. There's nothing to debate. I'm on Israel's side. Just stop. Me observing
I totally agree.
that you're losing the propaganda war and that this has gone on for about 2 years now. And look, I pulled the stats. Support for Israel's military action in Gaza by party ID.
It's undeniable.
GOP in June of 2024, 76%. Now 71%. So they lost 5%.
It's undeniable.
Dems in October of 2023, 36%. Now it's at 8%. Independents, October 2023, it was 47%. Now it's 25%. You go under 35, you have almost zero support across the United States, your closest ally. I see what's happening, and it's my job to comment honestly on it. Totally. But I am sick of being lectured on, like, you have to see it exactly as we see it and support everything, or you're against us.
So this is so important, Megan. And again, you cannot say everyone in the pro-Israel, and I don't say it, acts that way. But I got texts about you, Megan, saying, why is Megan doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megan's the best. She's amazing. And I said, why are you texting me about Megan? And I at that point, and so this is what they don't understand. You and I, Megan, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker.
Yeah.
Is that the more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction. Because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay?
Right.
Tell me I'm wrong. Cool. Tell me if I got my facts wrong. By the way, on the Epstein thing, Naftali Bennett says he wasn't an Epstein agent. We have to be pursuers of truth. They've denied it. Fine. Let's keep digging. Okay, fine. But the thing that I think is being lost is, on some part of the population, you can scold them into silence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I have any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megan, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an American, okay? I represent this country, and I don't even understand that paradigm. But Megan, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megan, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too, though, right? These are stakeholders, right? And so, look, I'm afraid because, again, I want civilization to win. I want the West to win. I don't want the Islamo-fascist barbarians to storm the gates of Jerusalem. I want the holy sites protected. I believe in the Holy Land. I love that Jesus walked on water there and rose from the dead and preached in the Mount of Beatitudes. I feel the connection to Israel. But at the same time, simultaneously, when the hostile reaction is that now Meghan and Charlie are enemies.
Right.
Boy, I'll tell you, you're not gonna, I wouldn't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates.
So he's defiant, and these are the videos that are fueling the theories, conspiracy theories that the Israeli government wanted to shut him up, and that's why they assassinated him. And so many people believe this, and so many people are using videos and statements made by Charlie Kirk like this in this interview with Megyn Kelly, what he said on Patrick Bet-David show. They're using those as examples of the motivation, why Israel would have been motivated to assassinate Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't believe that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk, but I don't believe that Tyler Robinson did either, and I've been clear about that. But he says that they are attacking us, calling us anti-Semites just because we're asking questions, and saying that we're against Israel just because we're asking questions. I want to play this clip. This is Democracy Now! And this is a former minister, government minister of Israel, Shumalet Al-Ani is her name. And I want you to listen to what she tells, what's her name here from Democracy Now! This is an old clip. Take a listen.
We are joined right now by Shulamit Aloni. She is in our Firehouse studio. She is a former member of the Knesset, former head of the Meretz party. She has long been an outspoken opponent of the Sharon government. Welcome to Democracy Now! Yours is a voice of criticism we don't often hear in the United States. Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it.
It's a trick. We always use it. We always use the trick of calling people anti-Semitic if they criticize Israel.
Government. People here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country. As you know, they have power, which it's okay. They are talented people, and they have power, money, and media, and other things. And their attitude is Israel, my country, right or wrong, the identification. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And it's very easy to blame people who criticize certain acts of the Israeli government as anti-Semitics, and to bring up the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jewish people, and that justifies everything we do to the Palestinians.
It justifies everything that we do, and it's a trick that we always use to deflect from criticism. We bring up the Holocaust, we bring up and call people anti-Semitic. Same thing that Charlie Kirk was saying here in this interview with Megyn Kelly. We use it as a way to deflect from criticism. It's a trick that we use. She is a former minister in the Israeli government. She is a Jewish person herself, and she's telling you this is a trick that we use, calling people anti-Semitic, bringing up the Holocaust to deflect from criticism. I just find that interesting. This is the clip that I played in an earlier podcast where a Jewish kid is questioning Charlie Kirk about critics of Israel like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, other people who have been called anti-Semitic because of their criticisms of the current Israeli government. And I want to replay this clip. This was just 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, but he says some really profound things in this. Take a listen.
Thank you for coming, Charlie. And I had a quick question about anti-Semitism online. Another question they asked about Candace Owens, and I'm a big fan of you. I was a big fan of her, but she's obviously been going down this anti-Semitic bent. And through her, I'm kind of finding out about these other characters online, like Nick, for instance. I'm sure you've heard of him. And these people, they've been active for a long time, and it seems like they've just been ignored, which is working, but now they're kind of surging in popularity. And as someone who I enjoy watching your debates, are they people you'd be willing to engage with and maybe shut them down in a way through a debate or something like that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to debate Candace. But no, look, I'll debate anybody that shows up at our campus events first and foremost. But I do want to take what you say and extrapolate that there is a corner of the internet of people that want to point and blame the Jews for all their problems. Everybody, this is demonic and it's from the pit of hell, and it should not be tolerated.
This is demonic and from the pit of hell, that people that want to blame the Jews and just say the Jews are responsible for all your problem, and the Jews are running the world, and the Jews are this dark force that are creating all of the wars and all of the problems in the world. He says that is demonic and from the pit of hell, that the hatred and blame of all Jews is what he's talking about.
I'll debate anybody that shows up at our campus events first and foremost, but I do want to take what you say and extrapolate that there is a corner of the internet of people that want to point and blame the Jews for all their problems. Everybody, this is demonic and it's from the pit of hell, and it should not be tolerated. Period. But it goes to a structural problem of an entire generation that has economic resentment. They don't own anything. They're not getting married. They're not having children. They're depressed. They're anxious. They're staring at their screens all day long. And if all of a sudden your extrapolation of all that is, well, it's the Jews' fault, that is sloppy and shallow thinking.
It's sloppy.
And not only that, they say, oh, it's the Jews' fault. Okay, let's kind of play this out. Well, tuberculosis, that used to kill about 1 billion people. You know, it's a group of Jewish scientists that came up with the antibiotic that cured tuberculosis. How about CPR, the MRI machine? You know, there's over 500 million lives that were saved over the last 50 years because of people that were Jewish scientists that were working on things. They'll never say thank you to the Jews, but they'll always say shame on the Jews. It's weird how that works. And finally, they always blame the Jews for stuff. Jewish people are an ethnicity.
This is the most important part that I want to focus on. That when people say the Jews and just lump all of the Jews in this one category, like he says, that's sloppy, and it's easy for them to accuse you of being anti-Semitic and being bigoted because you lump all the Jews into one category. Same thing with black people that just say all black people are criminals or all black people are this. Even though it may be, a large majority or even the perception that it's a large majority, to lump everybody in that category is easily for someone to say, oh, you're racist now because you lump all black people in that category, or you're bigoted now because you lump all, because you have taken this stereotype about Mexicans and say all Mexicans are this way. Same thing with the Jews. To say that all the Jews are responsible for all the problems in the world, that all the Jews are responsible for the wars, and all the Jews are responsible for, whatever's going on in your life at any given time. Like Charlie Kirk is saying here, that's sloppy. The Jews make up a very, there's so many different types of Jews. Jews are an ethnicity. He says it here in this clip. Take a listen.
500 million lives that were saved over the last 50 years because of people that were Jewish scientists that were working on things. They'll never say thank you to the Jews, but they'll always say shame on the Jews. It's weird how that works. And finally, they always blame the Jews for stuff. Jewish people are an ethnicity. So therefore, definitionally, you have people that are secular, Orthodox, religious, that are all over the spectrum. You're trying to.
So he didn't want to get into the rest of it, but he says you have Jews that are secular, you have Jews that are Orthodox, you have Jews that are Buddhists, you have Jews that are believe in the Torah, you have Jews that believe in the Talmud, you have rabbinical Jews. I mean, these are a group of Jews. These Jews right here, Nutura. Katara are their names. They're Orthodox Jews they call themselves Torah Jews. They don't read the Talmud. They don't believe in the Talmud. They only believe in the Torah. They're Torah Jews. This is one sect of Jews. And these Jews are against the nation of Israel. They don't believe that the nation of Israel should exist. This is one group of Jews that are one sect of Jews. They don't believe that the Torah, they believe in the Torah, not the Talmud. And they believe that the nation of Israel shouldn't exist. Now, can you blame these Jews for what's going on in the nation of Israel right now under the Likud government? Can you blame these Jews that don't even believe that the nation of Israel should exist? This is one of their leaders. I want you to take a listen to what he says here.
We are standing here in Times Square in New York City while Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to speak at the United Nations to the world leaders. And we as Jewish people are joining masses of right-minded people who are standing up and saying, no, we are here to address the world and to encourage world leaders to take a stance. So many world leaders have taken a stance in the last couple of days, speaking here, addressing the United Nations. And we encourage the rest of the world. We as Jewish people are deeply embarrassed when all these crimes, this genocide, this starvation of little children, and this occupation altogether is being committed against the Palestinian people, and especially when this is being committed in our name.
Especially when it's being committed in our name, that we are against the nation of Israel. We're against Zionism. If you listen to what these people say, there are many young Jews that are now that have grown up in Jewish families that are against the nation of Israel, against the government of Netanyahu. There's, like I said, secular Jews. There's Buddhist Jews. There's Masonic Jews, Jews that believe Jesus is the Messiah. There's Jews like that. There's so many different kinds of Jews. You know, you can't just lump, like what Charlie Kirk is saying, you can't just lump all the Jews in one category and say that the Jews are responsible for all the problem. There's a lot of Jews that are against the government there's a lot of Jews in Israel that are against the government of Netanyahu and the hardliners there in the Likud party. So we have to be specific about the Jews that we're talking about and who these Jews are that are into some bad things. And there are some Jews that are into some bad things. There's bad Jews, just like there's bad black people, just like there's bad Mexican people, just like there's bad people from every walk of life. Every group on this planet has bad people because that's the nature of humanity, human nature. So, there's bad Jews, but that doesn't mean that all Jews are bad. So who are the Jews that we're talking about that are, and I don't want to say that we're going to get into this, but why? This is the reason that I want to talk about the siege of Jerusalem, the destruction of Solomon's temple, and the Babylonian captivity, and that why I want to go back and tell this history. Because a lot of people know the history of the Balfour Declaration and know who Arthur Balfour is. They know about the Rothschilds and their influence on the creation of Israel, and Theodore Herzl and Theodore Herzl's creation of the Zionist movement. They know all that history over the last 100 years and the recreation of the nation of Israel and what's happened since World War II. People know that history, but very few people know this history, know the history of the Jews in Babylon and the destruction of Solomon's temple and how important it is. We were watching the clip in the last podcast about the Freemason temple there in Salt Lake City, and the guy takes the tour, and the 33-degree Mason who's given the tour there, and it says that all of our traditions go back to Solomon's temple. Everything is about Solomon's temple to us. We have to understand about Solomon's temple. We have to understand not only the creation of Solomon's temple, which they believe in, and their myths is what he called it, but also the destruction of Solomon's temple. You have to understand Babylon. You have to understand that. And I'm going to explain to you why you have to understand that as we go into these next few podcasts. Now, this is the Western Wall. They call this the Wailing Wall. And this wall is the wall of the second temple, not Solomon's temple. This is the temple that they built, that the Jews built after they came out of Babylon and went back to, which is the Holy Land and Jerusalem. And then when they came out of Babylon, they rebuilt the temple that Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed. And then this was the second temple. This temple was destroyed in 70 AD under Titus Vespasian. And the Roman Emperor Titus Vespasian destroyed the second temple. And this is why the Jews go there to the Wailing Wall. They write down prayers on pieces of paper and stick them in the wall. And they pray there at the Wailing Wall because this is the site of the second temple, not Solomon's temple, the second temple. And you'll notice that many of our presidents and leaders have gone to the Wailing Wall. This is George H.W. Bush there at the Wailing Wall. This is his son, George W. Bush, at the Wailing Wall. This is Bill Clinton there at the Wailing Wall. This is Barack Obama there at the Wailing Wall. Now, interesting enough, Joe Biden didn't go to the Wailing Wall. And as I was putting together this podcast, I was surprised to find out that there are no images of Joe Biden at the Wailing Wall, but his wife, Jill, you can see her there. Joe had the opportunity to go. I don't know if you remember when he did the trip over to the Middle East. He went to this was in 2022. So it's just kind of during the tail end of COVID. And remember, he went to Saudi Arabia and he met with MBS and he fist bumps him. He on this whole trip, he was supposed to be fist bumping everybody. I'm not going to shake hands. I'm going to fist bump everyone. But he would lose his memory and start shaking hands and people, fist bumping some people, shaking hands with some people. But during that trip, he went to Israel. They tried to get him to go to the Wailing Wall, and Joe Biden did not go, which means nothing. Joe Biden has admitted to the fact that he's a Zionist. This is his wife. I can show you pictures of J.D. Vance at the Wailing Wall, Marco Rubio at the Wailing Wall. I mean, so many other leaders at the band. So many of our leaders have gone to the Wailing Wall, and the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, is the wall of the Second Temple. And like I said, the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, by Titus Vespasian. And we're going to talk about the destruction of the Second Temple, but I just wanted to make a distinction between the Second Temple and Solomon's Temple, which was the first temple, which was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians in 587 BC. So why do I want to talk about the siege of Jerusalem in the 587 BC by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian captivity? Why is it important to talk about the Babylonian captivity? Because I want you to understand about a specific group of Jews who believe in the Talmud and revere the Talmud. Like I was just showing you. I was showing you these Jews that revere the Torah, and they don't believe in the Talmud. Like I said, there's some Jews that are secular. They don't believe in the Torah or the Talmud. There's some Jews that are Buddhists. They don't particularly care for the Torah or the Talmud. There's some Jews that are messianic and believe in the Gospels and believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But I want to talk about a specific group of Jews that do believe in the Talmud. They are rabbinic Jews. And you can see here it says rabbinic Judaism, also called Rabbiism or Rabbinicism or Rabbinite Judaism or Talmudic Judaism, is rooted in many forms of Judaism that coexist and together form the Second Temple of Judaism in the land of Israel. So after these Jews came out of Babylon and they built the Second Temple, which the Wailing Wall is the wall of the Second Temple, the Jews that were responsible for the construction of the Second Temple were Talmudic Jews, rabbinic Jews, Jews that believed in the Talmud. It says that the Talmud is after the Torah for many, or the Jewish Bible. So the Talmud is after the Torah or the Jewish Bible, the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of the Jewish religion, of the Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. So the Talmud is very important, and the full name of the Talmud, it's called the Babylonian Talmud. A lot of people don't know this, but this is what it's called. It's called the Babylonian Talmud because the Babylonian Talmud finds its roots in Babylon during the Babylonian captivity after the destruction of Solomon's temple. So that's why we're going back, and you have to understand the Babylonian captivity. That's why we're going to go back and we're going to look at the destruction of Solomon's temple. We're going to look at the Babylonian captivity, and we're going to talk about that more in the next podcast. We're going to just talk a little bit about it at the end of this podcast. Now, there is another, if you go back in history and you are looking up the Babylonian captivity, you want to read about the Babylonian captivity, you have to be aware that there is another historical event that is referred to as the Babylonian captivity. And this is not the Babylonian captivity that we're going to talk about in this podcast. And the other Babylonian captivity that you will find in history and related to as the Babylonian captivity is the Avion prophecy. And this is when the Pope for nearly 70 years was his seat of power was in Avion, France, and not in Rome. And this is referred to as the Babylonian captivity. But we're going to talk about the original Babylonian captivity. And this is the captivity that took place where Jews are taken from Judah by Nebuchadnezzar, and they're brought back to present day Iraq, which is Babylon. And this, and they destroyed Solomon's temple. All right. So there's this series on Amazon Prime. I watched the first episode last night. Seems to be well done. There is this disclaimer that they give in the beginning of every episode of the series, and it says some of the events depicted in this series may not accurately represent all historical and biblical facts or figures. While we have made efforts to portray certain aspects of history authentically, creative liberties have been taken for storytelling purposes. So you expect that out of Hollywood. I said to myself that if Hollywood is going to tell any story accurately, wink, wink, if you know who runs Hollywood, then they're going to tell this story accurately. One of the things that I noticed about this series and watching it is the casting. Very interesting casting. Everyone who's cast in this series looks Middle Eastern. There's no people with blonde hair or blue eyes, which I found very interesting. But this is a story of King David. King David is the second king of Israel. He becomes a great king. It is prophesied that a member of David's family will always sit on the throne of Israel. Talk about dynasties. This is one heck of a dynasty that someone from your dynasty is going to sit on this throne forever. In perpetuity is the prophecy that is given to David. And it's making reference to Jesus because Jesus is a direct descendant of David. That's why when you open the Gospel of Matthew, and it starts off with so-and-so begot so-and-so and so-and-so begot so-and-so, it starts off with this genealogy because the writer wants you to understand that Jesus is a direct descendant of David, that he is from the tribe of Judah. He was born in Bethlehem, the city of David, and he is a direct descendant of David. So I haven't really gotten into this series. They just released the second season, but I watched the first episode last night. It seems really good. I'm really looking forward to watching this. But David is the first or the second king of Israel, and he becomes a great king. And then after he dies, his son Solomon takes over the throne. Solomon is David's son, and then Solomon is the one who builds the temple, Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple that the Freemason in the last podcast says all of their myths are associated with Solomon's temple. the destruction of this temple by Nebuchadnezzar and the Neo-Babylonian Empire. This temple that was built by Solomon, Solomon's temple, is central to many occult myths. It's central to the Bible story, but that's who Solomon is. Solomon is the king of Israel, who is the son of David, the successor of his father David. He is described as the what is that? Penultimate ruler of the 12 tribes under the united Israel and Judah. Like I told you, that after Solomon, the tribes split into the kingdom of Israel to the north, Judah to the south, 10 tribes to the north, to the south. His reign is hypothesized to have lasted from 970 BC to 931 BC. According to the biblical narrative, his reign brought commercial prosperity through alliances and trade, but his accumulative wealth, horses and foreign wives, many of whom introduced adultery. So Solomon took foreign wives and introduced adultery and the worship of different gods besides the God of Israel, led to divine punishment. So the Bible speaks of the Babylonian captivity and the siege of Jerusalem and the destruction of Solomon's temple as divine punishment for Solomon's idolatry and the fact that he participated in idolatry. So we'll get into all of that when we get into more of this. The seal of Solomon. If you notice the seal of Solomon, it has the 6-point star, the same star that is on the present day Jewish flag of the nation of Israel. That flag and the 6-point star on that flag comes from the seal of Solomon. You'll notice this is the seal of Solomon right here. The seal of Solomon, or ring of Solomon, is the legendary signet ring attributed to King Solomon in medieval mystical traditions, from which it developed in parallel with Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, Islamic mysticism, and Western occultism. The Kabbalah tree, Western occultism. So Solomon participated in idolatry. The seal of Solomon is part of Jewish mysticism and Western occultism, and you can see it's the 6-point star, the same star that is on the present day Jewish flag. All right, so we're going to get into this in the beginning of the next podcast, but I have a little bit more time here. I want to talk about what the purpose of the temple was. Now, people think of a temple like it's a church. Like, the reason that Solomon built this temple is, so the people would have a place to go and sing hymns or sing psalms and maybe listen to the priest preach a message and, all of that. That's not what the temple was created for. Solomon didn't create this temple for people to go and read the Torah and listen to the priest preach a message and sing song. It's not like a church. That wasn't the reason for the construction of Solomon's temple or the second temple. There's only one purpose for the construction of this temple, and it's for the temple sacrifices. That was the purpose of this temple. Before the construction of the temple, the Jews did their annual sacrifices for atonement in the tabernacle. God had commanded the children of Israel to construct the tabernacle after the Egyptian exodus, and then they use the tabernacle up into the time that Solomon builds the first temple, and then those practices were taken from the tabernacle into the temple. It's all about an annual sacrifice during the period of time that we just celebrated last week, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is annual. Again, we just celebrated Yom Kippur on October 2nd of last week. But Yom Kippur is the oldest Jewish holiday, and it dates back over 3,000 years. And we'll read a little bit about Yom Kippur here, and we're going to get into more of this in the next podcast, because you have to understand that this is what the purpose of the temple was. The temple was not a place to go and listen to the priest preach a message or read the Torah or sing hymns. It was specifically for this reason and this reason only. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is the holiest day of the year in Judaism. Occurs annually on the 10th of Tishrei, corresponding to a date in late September or early October. This year was October 2nd. Rooted in the Torah, not the Talmud, rooted in the Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, the books of Moses, is where Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement comes from. Rooted in the Torah commandments, in antiquity, it centers around the high priest temple services. So Yom Kippur is about the high priest temple service, and his since evolved into the Day of Atonement and the Day of repentance, reflection, confession, and seeking forgiveness from God. Atonement and the sacrifices for atonement are the entire purpose for the temple that Solomon built, and then the second temple that they built after the Babylonian captivity. It's only for one purpose. It's for the purpose of the high priest temple service, the sacrificing of animals for the remission of sin as commanded by God in the Torah. You have to understand that. And still today, Orthodox Jews from around the world, they have this practice called kaparat, where they take chickens and they wave the chicken around their head, and then they slit the chicken's throat. They do this on Yom Kippur annually. They do it in New York. They do it in other parts of the United States, all over the world, that Orthodox Jews get together and take and practice this same ritual that was practiced in Solomon's temple 3,000 years ago, over 3,000 years ago, that the atonement for the sins of the people is imparted to this chicken. And back during the temple ceremonies, they use goats, they use bulls, they use sheep, but they would sacrifice an animal for the atonement of their sin. This is part of the Yom Kippur practice, and it's still practiced today. Take a listen to this clip here.
Yom Kippur is the most important day in the Jewish calendar, and one that chickens find most foul. Just before the fast, it's they who must take on the sins of Orthodox Jews. With throats cut, they slowly expire in a bucket while their killers pray.
We're trying to transfer all your sins. That really, when a person does a sin, you're supposed to be killed. But God in His mercy says you can be spared. So we try to transfer the sins from you onto the chicken, and chicken gets killed, as you see over here.
So this is central to the Christian faith as well, and that God set this system up, and Christians believe the same way that these Orthodox Jews believe, that they're transferring their sins to the chicken, and then the chicken gets killed. This is central to the Christian belief too, that Christians believe that Christians transfer their sins to Jesus, and that Jesus was sacrificed on Calvary the same way that these chickens are sacrificed. This is the sacrifice of Yom Kippur is central to the Christian belief that Jesus, this is what Paul says, or the author of Hebrews says in the book of Hebrews, in the 9th chapter of the book of Hebrews. Where does he say it? That right here in the 12th verse. Neither by the blood of goats or calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So this is central. The practice that has been practiced for thousands of years during Yom Kippur and is still practiced today is central to the Christian faith. That's what's going on there. And that was the purpose of the temple. The temple, you got to understand that was the purpose of Solomon's temple, and then later the temple after the Babylonian captivity, which we'll get more into the Babylonian captivity in the next podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. There was a lot in there, but like I said, we're going to get into the destruction of Solomon's temple, the Babylonian captivity more in the next podcast, and then we'll start reading some of the passages in Daniel. We'll talk about the Talmud, where the Talmud came from. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.